of the media over here. All of the media over there. I typically go over there, but it's just so much getting caught up in all of that. I don't feel like that today. Most importantly, I want to talk to y'all because there was a lot that went down today. Biggest thing, Cassie took the stand. This is the first time that Diddy and Cassie, that I'm told, have been in the same room in the last like 6.5 years. She went through and detailed a lot. So she gave us different steps of the freak offs. There's about 5 or 6 steps that she broke down. So she said that, you know, at first, step 1 would be this descriptive foreplay. So she says the male escort would get there, and Puff would help her choose the male escort, right? Like it would be allegedly Puff would help her choose the male escort. So there would be, you know, photos sent to her through agencies, or she said they would even enlist on Craigslist at some points. If not Craigslist, she said at one point they did Backpage, and she wouldn't put up the ad, but she would have to answer to the ad using her actual contact information, is what she said. So she said they would get they would figure out who the men would be. The prosecutor asked, were there any specific requests when you were finding these men? And she said at one point the only thing would be the man would have to be a black man with a big dick. She said but at a certain point it expanded where, you know what I mean, they would just pick the men together. So descriptive foreplay would be first. So the guy would come in, they would be touching each other, masturbating, and she would have to out loud describe everything to Diddy, whether he was in the room or not. Then it would go to step 2, which would be touching. So at this point, they're rubbing baby oil on each other, lubricant. But she says that there was like a thing with the baby oil. Like there was like almost like an alleged like fascination where they would oil almost every 5 minutes because that's what Diddy wanted. He wanted you to be oiled to a certain extent. She made it very clear that they were a very choreographed event. It's so crazy because when she described the freak offs, I'm not even gonna hold y'all, I was like, it sounds like he was directing a music video, which I mean, you know, but it sounded like that. Like she said, you know, at one point, it would only be like, you know, they would get extra linens, there would be a ton of baby oil and different lubricants, and it would be really messy because there'd be lubricant and oil everywhere, candle wax everywhere. But and these were actually smell good candles. She said that he always wanted to make sure it smelled really good, and she said that eventually the candles moved from candles to actual like lighting, like studio lighting or almost like party lighting. And they showed a photo of Puff in the court in a background that, you know, just like the red light that you would get from like Amazon. But she said that these were actually actual studio lights that could change on demand to different colors. She says that she alleges that Puff would even step in sometimes and be like, yo, y'all not oiled enough, like y'all need to oil more. Step 3 would then go to oral sex. She says that sometimes she would even like speed it up. Like she's alleging that, you know, at certain points she wouldn't want to be doing it so bad that she would speed up the touching just to get to the oral sex so she could get it over with. And then step 4 would be the actual intercourse. Now she said, depending on how familiar they were with the escorts, because they had some of their favorites. They listed a couple people that they dealt with a couple times, including the man who allegedly was in the room the day that the day that video that dropped on CNN happened. That escort is from a company that they work with all the time, and he was actually a familiar escort as well. If he was even in the room, because that's alleged, right? But she said that he was today. But depending on how familiar they were with these escorts, one of the escorts will be able to actually have sex with her while Diddy was having sex with her. So when she broke that down, she said, you know, like maybe one guy would be like having sex with her while she's giving Puff head, or vice versa. She just said it would be a lot going on. She said now there were certain times where Diddy would just want to watch, or even if he didn't watch, it would be a thing where they would have to come on her. And again, we've heard the male escort that was on the stand, I feel like some of her testimony today kind of made him not look as crazy, because Cassie said in her testimony today, she alleged that whenever they would come, when they did come on her, Diddy would want her to keep it. They would go into a separate room and she would have to rub it on him. And they would go into the next room, and allegedly Diddy would want the escorts come on his body. And I believe she said it was on his nipples. Yes, Diddy allegedly would want to come on his chest or his nipples. She said at some points the freak offs could go with, allegedly 1 to 4 different men, and they would do different sessions. So it'd be different men, different sessions throughout the time period. and it would last for hours. And she said sometimes as she was being fucked, or even afterward, like they would have conversations about it, and Diddy would ask her allegedly about the penis. Like he would ask her, how did it feel? What did it look like? How did it make her feel? And you know, she also admitted during this, and I know that the prosecution, I mean the defense is going to lean in a lot on this. She admitted to having a lot of the freak off videos on her phones. She says that it wasn't just on her devices though either. She says that it was shared. Like sometimes she'd do it on her phone, sometimes she'd do it on his phone. It would be on camcorders. She alleged that it was between the two of them already. So within the first 10 minutes, she was already emotional and crying, but it wasn't like a hard, crazy cry. It was like a, you know, just her. She was tearing. She was actually really, really strong. Like I was actually pretty surprised at how strong she was with all the circumstances, right? Because you got to think about it. She's sitting not only in front of Puff, who's looking straight at her the whole time, directly straight at her the whole time, but she's sitting in front of his family, his mother, his children, you know, some of the other children's moms that she has spent so much of her life with and built so many of these memories, good and bad, with. She mentioned a lot of drugs. She said that at one point during the freak offs, they were so high that they lasted for like 3 days. And she said, and the prosecutors asked her, well, at what point would you sleep? She said, I wouldn't. You know, and I'm not even gonna hold y'all, like there were a lot of moments where she had some explaining to do. Like there was text messages where she texted and said she wanted to freak off so bad, and this was the day of the video, the CNN video, the Cassie beating video. She talked about just all of the supplies that they would have, body oil, baby oil, candle wax, extra linens. That she said there'd be blood on linens because a lot of times she was made to have sex on her period and she didn't want to. She alleges that she didn't want to. She says that there'd be a lot of times where there'd be urine on her and on the linen. And she said and she alleged that at some points it wouldn't even just be male escorts that would be peeing on her, that it would be Diddy and male escorts at the same time sometimes, is what she alleged. And she said that at one point, like she remembered just choking from it. And the prosecutors asked her, like, well, why didn't you just get up? Why didn't you tell him that this wasn't something you wanted to do? And she was like, I mean, I was so high, and you got two men standing over top of you. You're laying in the ground. Like, what am I going to do besides just put my hands up? Y'all know what? I was just trying to figure out. You want to say hi to my video? Yeah. Say hey. Hey. Tell them about your YouTube channel.
Celebrity Scandal.
This has been one of my media friends that I met so many people on the line and covering this case, but we were just talking about today, and I wanted to come back and tell y'all because I couldn't really put it into words how today made me feel, because like it didn't give sex trafficking and all that yet, even though they have talked about him paying for people to fly across state line, and I know they're gonna get to it, but I was like, how did today make me feel? And then I was like, you know what, it didn't make me after watching her and detailing her history with him and all of that, it's going to take a lot to convince me that she's just out to get him for no reason. Like, I got a girl who was young, really, really in love. She was even very hesitant to answer some of the questions. Like, you could tell that, like, it's her nature to still kind of protect him a little bit. Right? You got that too?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when they asked her, I forget what it was. I wrote the questions down, but and I'll make a separate video on that. But there were certain questions they were asking her, and I'm like, man, she don't even really want. Oh, they asked her why did they move to LA, and she was like, you know, his family, and I respected that. And she was like, but what do you mean his family? Like, exactly why? And she was like, his family. And
she said he wanted to be closer to his
wanted to be closer to his family. And I'm like, she won't even go into detail about his certain personal things. In the beginning, that was in the beginning of her testimony. She did open up, but when I saw that, I'm like, man, she really loved this man, like OD, like honestly, like, so it gave you empathy. That's the word, and it made me be like, okay, I can hear him out now. Because first, they're not gonna hold you to defense. Shut it down. It made me be like, oh, y'all gonna have to come real correct, because I don't know if I believe it all now. But today really kind of backed me up off of that. So